Hello and welcome to Laurie Faye Art. It's Laurie. Today I have a review on the Paul Rubens Caroline Watercolor Tube Set. This set is the 36 colour set and the tube size is 5mm. Okay, so some important notes on the paints to start off with. Number 1, the manufacturer claims to not use any synthetic pigments as a pigment substitute. Number 2, the box they come in I found was quite sturdy and quite strong, and it is rather pretty. To be honest, with the tubes, you're going to add them to a palette anyway, so it isn't really a big deal, but it is nice to have a sturdy box to store them in. I actually used the Meaden palette. I didn't use a Paul Rubens palette, simply because the Meaden palette had enough room and was considerably cheaper. Number 3, they are kid safe and are non-toxic, but I wouldn't advise to eat them. So next I would like to talk about the experience bracket in where I think these paints would fit. After using them and taking into consideration the price bracket and the degree of light fastness, I would say the set is suitable for anyone that's wanting to learn and get serious about watercolor. And I would also say that if you want to sell your work, because of the light fastness, these are probably a good investment opposed to other cheaper brands. Definitely keen artists right through to professionals would be my experience bracket with that. So the price bracket, I found these on Wish for $27, but you're going to be looking at probably 3 years to get them because postage is so slow right now. I also have found them in other places for up to $90 for the box, and that is some art stores that are in Australia. I paid $62 and the link will be in the description below. I resourced them from Amazon Australia. They're probably cheaper overseas, like in America or perhaps even Canada, maybe even Europe. They may be cheaper, but Australia, I think that around the $60 mark is where you'll be looking, and I think that's a fairly good price range to be looking opposed to the more expensive brands. The colour selection is pretty standard in this set, and as you will see, there is a rather relatively even number of shading from Chinese white right through to ivory black. The first thing I noticed is a little bit goes a long way, and you don't really need to put a lot on your brush in order to get the pigment down on the paper. I put them in pans and used them about 24 hours after, and they had dried a little bit to some degree, but they did wet up really nicely and were not chalky like the cheaper paints. After this swatch test, I have used them for a few actual art pieces, and I find they're very smooth and very consistent in colour. Layering them is amazing. They hold up well to being layered once dried, and the colours just become more richer and more vibrant the more layers that you put on. With watercolours, they give around a 30% fade factor after drying. The colours always dry a little bit lighter, or sometimes a lot lighter, and these seem to fade a lot less than what I was used to. I expected that because of the pigment being a little darker or a little more vibrant. I thought that that might be the case. This is an absolute bonus for people that want to be more bold with their colour and more striking with their colour. But if you're looking to do a wash, or you're looking to do a much lighter, much watercolory piece, they may not suit that application, so keep that in mind. You can put more water, and it is about learning how much and how less water you need and adjusting your style to the different paints. I do feel that the pigment is quite heavy, so in order to get that washed out look, you really do need to add a fair bit of water. I do use the wet on wet technique quite a lot, and I did find that painting them with this wet on wet technique helped to dilute that and give that more washed out watercolory look. One thing I did find is that they were not real granulating, and some people like that to give that texture to their artwork, but to be honest, it wasn't a big deal for me. Even working on an A3 illustrative piece, I found them quite consistent and relatively smooth, and they didn't seem to granulate. A few of the colours did granulate, but it was only slightly and really made no difference to the outcome of the actual artwork. Lifting. Some people really like to use the technique of lifting paint. I'm not an artist that does much lifting, and I do find this technique is relevant to what paper you use as well. But in my experience so far, some of the darker pigments, such as the permanent blue violet and the burnt sienna, and also the raw umber, unless they were straight away given this lifting technique to make them move, any time that went past was crucial, and they really stuck hard to the paper and were really hard to lift. If you're someone that uses this technique, this lifting technique a lot, you may find it a little difficult with some of them, and I do feel that that's due to the pigment inside these paints. So in summary, I feel that they are a great price for an artist quality paint, and if you're looking for that step up from a student grade or from just a cheaper quality paint, this is a really good match for dollar. They are incredibly pigmented, and that can go for them and it can be against them as well if it's not relative to your style. As far as shrinkage goes in the pans, I don't see a lot of shrinkage, in fact very little, and at the time of this video they had not cracked in the pans at all, so that's a real bonus for when you're wetting them up. You're not having the water seeping to the bottom, which is where you don't need it. So I found that to be a really good bonus. They seem to stay true to form in their pans. Another bonus is that they do have a great selection of colours. I have the 36 set here, but I do know that you can buy other colours in their range. So if you wanted to continue filling the pans in your palette set, for example, there are options there. The only con that I can see so far to the selection is that some of the colours in this box are particularly close together. For example, the yellows, they can be sort of seen a little bit different when you look at them in person. On the video obviously they don't look that different. The other one is the permanent light red and the vermilion. They look very similar to each other as well. That can be said for a number of different brands of paint where you're getting a lot of very similar shades, but that's not to say that they don't act differently when mixed with other colours. So I really do look forward to working with these in the future, and I want to thank you if you've got this far and listening, and I hope that this has given you some insight into what this product is like if you're looking at buying it, whatnot. As I said before, all the links to the things that I've used, including the paper, is in the description below. I'm not sponsored, so I'm just doing it so that especially Australians, as it seems to be a little bit difficult sometimes to source products, I'll put those links below and the names of the products that I've used throughout. I just want to thank you for joining me today, and as always, stay safe and I'll see you next time.